associates have immersed themselves in the legal field of personal injury, sharpening their skills, gaining practical knowledge, and learning what they can't be taught in law school, what it truly means to be a part of the legal profession. Tonight, they take center stage. They'll put their knowledge to the test, demonstrating not only their grasp of legal principles and courtroom etiquette, but also their ability to advocate passionately and professionally for their clients. But this is more than a performance. It's a reflection of our summer associates' progress, commitment, and transformation over the past few months. So, on behalf of Cantor and Pintaluga, please sit back and enjoy our 2025 Summer Associate Mock Trial as we witness the next generation of legal talent bring their skills to life.
Ask the attorneys to, again, to introduce themselves to you and who their clients are. We'll begin with the plaintiffs. Counsel, you may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. My name is Nicolas Ronckovitz, along with my co-counsel,
Carlos Rivero.
and we have the privilege of representing the plaintiff in today's matter, Ms. Cameron Carter.
Thank you. Good afternoon. You may be seated. And on behalf of the defense.
Good evening, Your Honor. My name is Jeremy Devoursney, and I, along with my co-counsel,
Daniela, Marin, Alonso.
have the honor and privilege of representing Colonial Casino and Racetrack LLC in this matter.
And you have the personal representative for
Yes,
the
this is the
corporation.
personal representative of the corporation, the owner of the racetrack, Frankie Fonseca.
Thank you. You all may be seated. All right. Is the plaintiff ready for trial?
Yes, Your Honor. Prior to opening, we do have a few housekeeping matters that requires your court's attention.
All right. Well, let me find out. Is the defense also ready for trial?
Yes, Your Honor, we are
Yes, Your
prepared
Honor.
for trial.
All right. Then I'll hear any pretrial motions that you may have. Make sure that counsel for the defense knows which motion you're referring to.
Yes, Your Honor. Prior to pretrial motions, maybe address some housekeeping matters?
You may.
Thank you. Would Your Honor like a brief recitation of the facts of the case?
No, counsel. I've been presiding over the facts and the motions in this case, and we were supposed to have done all of this before the jury came in, so we'll try to make that. I'm ready to hear the evidence in the case.
Yes, Your Honor. One brief housekeeping matter. We do have a pretrial ruling that all evidence is admissible, and both parties have stipulated that all objections are being waived to that
All right.
evidence.
And the defense agrees. That's my previous ruling.
Yes, Your Honor,
Yes, Your
just a clarification point. It's our understanding that all evidence has been pre-admitted into evidence, just so that no foundation needs to be laid for the evidence. to
It's
be
coming
admitted.
in. I made the pretrial ruling and nobody objected, so, it's been stipulated to, and I'll explain that to the jury, but, as long as my ruling remains, I didn't change anything last night.
Yes, Your Honor. We can proceed with plaintiff's first motion in limine.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, plaintiff moves by way of motion in limine to exclude any and all evidence or testimony regarding Kenneth Carter slapping the horse, Southern Charm. Federal Rules of Evidence 403 states that relevant evidence may be excluded if its probative value is substantially outweighed by danger of unfair prejudice.
All right. Let me hear from the defense. Evidence that Kenneth Carter slapped the horse. You
Your
agree
Hon-
with that?
No, Your Honor, we oppose that motion in limine. The probative value is not substantially outweighed by any risk of potential prejudice effect on the plaintiffs. Here, our affirmative defense is comparative fault, and whether Mr. Carter's actions, including striking the horse, contributed to the accident is a key part of our defense. We aren't using the slap to mischaracterize Mr. Carter, nor to inflame the emotions of the jury. Therefore, it's not unfairly prejudicial. We intend to use it to create a full picture of what happened at the gate when Mr. Carter was loading the horse into the gate.
All right. Rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. The term slapping carries emotional weight and could improperly suggest abuse or misconduct. The owner of Colonial, Frankie Fonseca, has said that slapping horses is not abuse of a horse.
All right. Well, from what I have heard from the arguments of counsel, the motion in limine will be denied. Counsel, you will be allowed to use that evidence, and you can present evidence that, just slapping or tapping a horse is not abuse.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, any further motions?
Yes, Your Honor. Plaintiff has one more motion in limine. At this time, we move to exclude any and all evidence or testimony that the helmet may or may not have saved Kenneth Carter's life. We have a good faith basis to believe that the defense is going to mention that if Kenneth was wearing the helmet, he may have been saved. There is no witness being called here today who has the experience, the education, or the knowledge to opine to that fact. Additionally, the only piece of evidence that is included is an affidavit from the owner of the helmet company who says that exact same thing. They cannot say whether it would or would not have done something to affect the outcome of what happened. So we would just like to take any mention and exclude that it may have made a difference.
From the defense, let me hear your argument.
Yes, Your Honor. It's the defense's position that any testimony regarding the helmet and its potential to have actually saved Mr. Carter's life that day would be admissible as a layperson opinion under Federal Rules of Evidence 701. Any evidence of any testimony about an opinion would be rationally based on the witness's experience with wearing helmets. It would be helpful to the jury to clarify any confusion that they might have about whether or not this helmet would have saved his life. So pursuant to Federal Rules of Evidence 702, we would request that the court deny that motion.
Your Honor, if I may, Federal Rule of Evidence 702 allows an expert to opine to these facts. It requires specialized knowledge. 701, lay witness testimony, is based on the witness's rational perception. And yes, while a lay witness may be aware and familiar with a helmet, they're not familiar with what medical impact a helmet would have had to prevent a TBI or brain hemorrhage, which traumatic brain injury is what Kenneth Carter died of. So we would like to keep this out under Federal Rule of Evidence 701 and 702.
Based upon the affidavit that from the manufacturer of the helmet, that person was unable to give an opinion whether or not wearing the helmet would have saved a life or whether it would have just been futile based upon the blunt trauma injuries in this case. Accordingly, at best, anybody testifying as to wearing the helmet would be speculative. Therefore, I'm going to deny the motion in limine, actually grant it to keep it out. So, no mention of the helmet saving life, and you can mention that the horse was slapped. Anything further?
No further motions from the plaintiff, Your Honor.
All right.
Just for clarification,
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, we can mention the helmet and whether or not Mr. Carter was wearing his helmet that day. It's just specifically excluding any opinion testimony about whether or not it would have saved his life.
As long as you have a witness that can verify that at the time of the decedent's death, he was wearing a helmet or not wearing a helmet, or there was some policy saying he should have worn a helmet. I don't know. I'm not trying your case for you. I'm just listening. All right. So, everybody clear?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Any-
Yes, Your Honor. The defense has motions in limine.
All right. Let me hear from the defense.
The defense moves in limine to exclude any lay witness opinions about the horse's temperaments, specifically regarding Ms. Cameron Carter. Under Federal Rules of Evidence 701, a lay witness may only offer opinion testimony if it's based on what they personally observed or if it helps the jury understand the facts. Here, Ms. Cameron Carter, the plaintiff, referred to the horse as rogue, ill-tempered, ornery, and mentioning in her deposition that the horse should have never been there. That was on page 24 of her deposition, and we anticipate that she will testify in a similar manner. However, Ms. Carter also had to concede in her deposition that she never saw the horse bite or kick anyone, never saw the horse acting dangerous, never in fact saw the horse with her own eyes. Her characterizations are therefore based on secondhand information, not something that she personally observed. Furthermore, she doesn't have any specialized knowledge, expertise, or technical knowledge about horses. In particular, and any such testimony regarding the horse's temperament would be speculation and improper testimony under 701.
Yes, Your Honor. Cameron Carter was an employee at Colonial Racetrack for 10 years, and as an employee, she worked alongside the trainers on the actual racetrack, giving the trainers opinions about the horse. Additionally, this witness did see Southern Charm, didn't specifically see the horse make any rogue movements. However, at some point, this witness did witness Southern Charm and is able to provide her rationally based perception of those horses' actions. Additionally, she is acting as the personal representative of Kenneth Carter, and we planned to elicit testimony from her based on Kenneth Carter's present sense impression and then existing emotional state. Kenneth Carter was on the phone witnessing the horse, describing everything to his wife at the time, and also sent many text messages to his wife telling her what he saw. So we do plan to get this testimony out of the plaintiff, not only to her impression of the horse based on her experience, but also based on her late husband's impression of the horse.
Your Honor, Miss Cameron Carter was only employed at Colonial for 10 years, but as a clocker and a mutual teller. That means she didn't work directly handling the horses. She only timed the horses and took the bets that were placed in the field. She never, in her testimony, testified that she saw the horse. In fact, we only have some calls that were made between her and her husband talking about the horse, but nothing further.
I recall during the pretrial litigation of this case that there were some text messages about whether or not they would have to scratch, not even have the race because they didn't have enough horses, and then all of a sudden there was this suggestion and basically mandate to put this horse into the race so that they could have 4 or 5 horses. So, and there was some language that the horse was too young to be in the race. I think all of that's relevant in this case when we're talking about liability, who knew what. So, therefore, the motion in limine made by the defense to keep out evidence of the temperament of the horse is denied. Anything further?
Yes, Your Honor. We do have a second motion in limine we would like to address with the court.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, the defense seeks to exclude any and all mention of a past incident of a horse harming an employee at Colonial Racetrack. Your Honor, there was an instance at an unknown time in the past involving a horse named Starlight Twinkle, where an employee suffered minor injuries when the horse was training and had an incident. Your Honor, pursuant to Federal Rules of Evidence 401 and 403, this evidence should be excluded. As for Federal Rules of Evidence 401, this event is not relevant as it does not make a material fact of this case any more or less likely to have occurred, and this incident is not of consequence in determining the action before the court here today. Further, Your Honor, pursuant to Federal Rules of Evidence 403, any probative value of this evidence would be substantially outweighed by the risk of its prejudicial effect. Specifically, this incident would only be used for propensity purposes and would confuse the issue in this case, as this case is about a different horse, and it does not go to a material fact of this case. And for those reasons, we request that the court grant our second motion in limine.
Yeah, we're talking about the same horse or a different horse, and you just want to put in evidence of propensity.
It's a different horse, Your Honor.
Okay.
Plaintiffs have good faith belief that defense is going to argue that this was just all an accident, but the showing of prior horse incidents will show that the defendant was put on notice of these kind of incidents, but that they didn't do anything about it, and basically that it's a lack of accident pursuant to 404B2, Your Honor.
I think you're stretching it. Just because it was a car accident on Federal Highway yesterday, and then one occurs today, that the city and the state ought to be on notice that Federal Highway is a dangerous place. I think that's stretching it. 94.4B does not work to just say any time there's an accident that comes in, unless it involves the same people or similar or same type circumstances. So my allowing that into evidence would be very, very erroneous at this stage. So any testimony regarding a different horse with a different employee is not relevant under 9401 and therefore not admissible at trial. So the motion in limine on that is granted.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, that concludes motions in limine for the defense, and we're ready to proceed to opening statements when Your Honor is ready.
Anything further from the plaintiffs?
Your Honor, we're ready to proceed, but I do believe that we've agreed that we have a clean copy of the record for Your Honor.
All right.
May we approach?
You may.
It's tabbed, and
All
we
right.
have the same tabs.
Thank you. And
You're
you've
welcome.
seen this,
Yes, sir.
that he's not handing me things to say and do up here.
I hope not.
Okay. No, all right. The court will follow along with it, and at this time, let me do a brief introduction as to what you all are about to do, and then be prepared for your opening statements. Each side is gonna have the same amount of time, all right? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you all for your patience. At this time, the attorneys are going to present to you what is called an opening statement. This gives you sort of like a roadmap as to what this case is about, what they anticipate the evidence to be. But you cannot accept what they say as evidence. The evidence comes from this witness stand and in the form of exhibits and evidence, something you can feel, something you can hear. So therefore, I'm going to allow them to make that opening statement because I think it's going to be helpful to you to know what they plan to show by way of evidence. All right? You may be seated for the defense, for the plaintiffs. You have the floor.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Members of the jury, we're here today because Kenny Carter passed away after Colonial made a decision to put a horse out there to race, even though they knew it should not have been there. So what happened? It's the weekend and it's race day at Colonial. Now the stadium's getting packed. People are coming into the stadium. They're excited to watch this brand new horse race and gamble on these horses. Now all the horses are lined up into their starting gate and they're ready to run, except for this one horse, Southern Charm, a 2-year-old racehorse with no racing experience and improper training. Unfortunately, the person attempting to load that horse into the gate is Mr. Carter. So all the horses are lined up in the gate and Kenny's there attempting to load this horse, but it's refusing. It's digging its hooves into the ground, and it does not want to get in that gate. Kenny even has to get someone else to come help him load that horse in the gate. After some time, the horse finally agrees to load. But when it's in that gate, it's uneasy like it has been all week long. That's when suddenly, Southern Charm rears its body, and boom, next thing you know, Kenny is being carried out in an ambulance, only to pass a few moments later. But what does the person at the top of the food chain, the owner of Colonial, Frankie Fonseca, do? She runs the race anyways, as her loyal employee of 15 years is getting carried out in that ambulance. She says the show must go on. You're going to learn that day of the race, Colonial had what's called a short field. Now all that means is that they only had a handful of horses to race. But the owner of Colonial, Frankie Fonseca, she's not a fan of short fields. That's because fewer horses mean fewer bets, and fewer bets mean less money for Colonial, for her business. So that morning of the race, Frankie and her go-to person, Jamie, they have a conversation and they're concerned about the short field. They need more horses to race. They can't miss out on money. That's when they turn to a last-minute option, Southern Charm, the 2-year-old racehorse with no race experience, improper training, and a horse that had a pattern of behavioral issues in the 1 week it was at Colonial. This all came down to 2 options at the hand of Colonial. Option 1 was to not have the horse out there. And option 2 was to have the horse out there and race. And Colonial chose option 2, even though they all knew, as you'll see, that horse just wasn't ready to race. But you see, businesses like Colonial, they can't just take these risks and ignore the health and safety of their employees. But when they do, we can hold them accountable. That's why Mr. Carter's wife, Cameron Carter, has brought this suit of negligence against Colonial. As the plaintiffs, we carry something called the burden of proof. All that means is that we need to prove to you that Colonial was supposed to do something, but that they didn't do it. Me and my co-counsel, Nick, we're going to prove this to you through 3 main reasons. First, that horse was too young, inexperienced, and improperly trained to be out there. Second, that Colonial had control over everything, even the training of that horse, leading to the death of Mr. Carter. And third, that Colonial cut corners, putting profits over their own people that day to avoid that short field. As to those 3 points, you're going to hear from Blake Bauer. She's going to be the first person that sits here and talks to you today. She was the head horse trainer at Colonial for 15 years when this incident happened. You're going to learn about her expertise in horse training and how in the short time that she was training that horse didn't even meet the proper training benchmarks that would have made her eligible to race. She's also going to tell you how Colonial took control of the training from her, and that when they didn't even properly train that horse. Ultimately, she's going to tell you herself that that horse should not have been there. Next, you're going to hear from Kenny's wife, Cameron Carter. She's going to show you how Kenny expressed his concerns for this horse, and that even he thought that horse had no business on that track. But, as any good employee would do, Kenny was just doing his job when he was trying to load that horse. He trusted the judgment of the people above him. As to my third point again, that Colonial cut corners, putting profits over their own people to avoid that short field. Members of the jury, you're going to hear it from Frankie and Jamie themselves, the people at the top of the food chain at Colonial. It wasn't until a conversation the morning of the race concerning that short field is when that horse was listed on what's called the starters list, making that horse eligible to race. At the end of this trial, my co-counsel Nick, he's going to stand up here and talk to you about the evidence and the facts that we've discovered together through this trial. He's going to show you the verdict form on that screen, and he's going to apply the facts and evidence to the verdict form. I know that when the verdict form comes in your hands, you're going to find Colonial negligent for the death of Kenny Carter. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel. The defense? Ms. Alonso, you may.
Caution is a choice. There is nothing we can say or do in this courtroom to turn back time. There's nothing we can do to bring back a loved one. And Mr. Carter is a loved one. He was a father, a husband, and a friend to those who worked at Colonial beside him for 15 years. But we're here because Colonial is being blamed for what happened to Mr. Carter. Colonial is being blamed for the death of Mr. Carter. The evidence will not show that. You see, the evidence will show that this is all about that one time. That one time a passenger doesn't buckle their seatbelt. That one time when a driver chooses to text and drive. The one time when a horse trainer chooses to not wear a helmet because it's hot outside. 99 times out of 100, nothing happens. But then there's that one time when it does. And when it does, the pain is real. But it doesn't mean someone else is to blame. And this case comes down to that one time, that one choice that Mr. Carter made to not wear his helmet that day. And while it may be that one time can make a difference. The average racehorse is over 1,000 pounds. It's 1,000 pounds of raw muscle, power, and speed. No matter the training, you'll hear professionals that worked at Colonial with the horses say that they know this, that they know training alone doesn't make a horse safe. Caution does. Choosing caution every day, always, every time. And you'll learn that Mr. Carter didn't choose that. Even though he knew it. He knew that despite training, horses will still be horses. They're animals. Colonial is a racetrack that has been in Washingtonia for over 75 years. It's been a staple in the community. It started with Miss Fonsetti's grandfather in the 1950s, and it was passed down to her father and now the current owner, Miss Frankie Fonsetti. Let us introduce you to Frankie Fonsetti. Frankie grew up at Colonial. She grew up in those racetracks, learning from the grounds crew and from her father, being raised to see everyone that worked at Colonial as family. After high school, she started managing the business with her father. And after her father passed away, she took over as the current owner of Colonial. That was over 30 years ago. That means that half of Miss Fonsetti's lifetime has been spent at Colonial with everyone that has worked there for decades. Colonial, as a staple of this very small town, of this very small community, has reinvested in its employees. It has sent them back to school so that they can contribute, they can go and come back and contribute to the business so that they can improve their lives. People like the ones that you'll meet here today. People like Miss Jamie Wright, the head starter at Colonial for over 20 years. People like Miss Blake Bowers, who worked at Colonial for 30 years. And people like Mr. Kenneth Carter, who was a loved and experienced assistant starter for 15 years. And even the plaintiff herself, who worked at Colonial for 10 years. Members of the jury, Ms. Fonsetti will take the stand and she'll tell you everything about safety at Colonial for the horses and the staff. She'll tell you it backed by 60 years of experience at Colonial. She'll tell you that by 60 years of preventing accidents like this one from happening. Miss Jamie Wright will take the stand and she'll tell you about her expertise at Colonial with horses. She'll tell you how she took on Southern Charm's training personally, and that Southern Charm completed every bit of that training. How after everything that she saw while she trained Southern Charm, she believed that horse was ready to race, no matter how young it was. She believed that Southern Charm had shown great progress, and that's why Southern Charm was entered into that race. Members of the jury, it is the plaintiff's burden here today. They must prove to you that Colonial did something wrong that caused Mr. Carter's death. It caused this accident to happen. But the evidence will not show that. The evidence will show 3 undisputed facts. 3 facts that no one here can disagree on. 1, that this was a dangerous job, and everyone at Colonial knew it. 2, that Colonial had safety rules and safety equipment that it provided to all of its employees. And 3, that Mr. Carter, for reasons we may never fully understand, chose not to follow those rules, chose not to wear his helmet, chose not to protect himself. At the end of all of this, it'll be your job to take those facts and to weigh the choices that were made. Choices not only made by Colonial, but those made by Mr. Carter himself. it will be more than just the choices. It will be the fact that Mr. Carter chose not to protect himself. The evidence will show that this wasn't about the horse, it was about the handler. And that one time he chose to forgo caution. Members of the jury, at the end of all of this, we'll ask you to render a verdict. We'll ask you to render one that's honest and fair. The evidence will have shown to you that this wasn't a failure of policy, planning, or preparation. It will have shown to you that this came down, and the reason why we're here today is because Mr. Carter didn't wear his helmet. My co-counsel, Mr. Devoursney, will stand here and he'll walk you through all of the evidence. And in that verdict, we hope that you have an honest and fair opinion of what happened in this case. One that is based on evidence, and that will be one that's based with Colonial. Thank you.
Thank you. Plaintiff may proceed with this witness.
Yes, Your Honor, at this time, plaintiff calls your first witness, Blake Bauer, to the stand.
Hi, please approach the witness stand, remain standing to be sworn. Solemnly swear the testimony you will give will be the truth. You may be seated. All right, tell the members of the jury your name and then spell your last name for the record.
My name is Blake Bauer, last name Bower.
You may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Bauer, what is it that you do?
I was head racehorse trainer at Colonial.
And how long were you the head racehorse trainer at Colonial for?
I worked at Colonial for more than half of my life. It would have been 30 years, but I was head racehorse trainer for 15 of those.
Okay. And how did you work your way up to becoming head trainer? Were you just in that position?
I actually started working at Colonial when I was in high school. I was cleaning stables. Eventually, I started feeding and grooming the horses. At one point, I did an apprenticeship with Gabe Hastings for 4 years at Colonial too, and I've been head horse trainer for 15 now.
Okay, and aside from working your way up to becoming head trainer, do you have any formal education in racehorse training?
Yes, I have my degree in equine studies.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your work while at Colonial. Were you ever familiar with a horse named Southern Charm?
Yes, I was assigned to train Charm when he first arrived at Colonial.
And what was that training like?
It was a challenge, especially because Southern Charm hated the gates. It was a struggle to actually get him to load.
And why was it a struggle to get that horse to load?
Well, there's a couple of steps that we take when we're training a horse to properly load into these starting gates, and Southern Charm displayed issues at every step of the way, whether it was actually loading or walking into the gate or being able to stand on all fours.
Okay, and to fix these kind of issues with horses, what kind of techniques would you employ?
I would focus heavily on lead and gait training that horse.
Okay, let's break each of those down. What is lead training?
Well, lead training is the process of building a personal relationship with the horse. It teaches them who their leader is and whose commands to listen to. If you don't have a proper foundation of lead training the horse, then the horse doesn't know who to listen to, and it might get very dangerous when it comes to a higher stakes situation.
And how about gait training? What's that?
Well, like I said, gait training has a couple of steps, but the first phase would be getting the horse comfortable with the gate itself and then walking into the gate while the doors remain open. At times we'd have horses that would show some resistance, and in that case we'd have two assistant trainers kind of guide the horse into the gates.
Okay, and once the horse is comfortable with getting in that gate, then what?
Once the horse will properly walk into the gate with no problems, we'd start closing the gates behind them. And we'd repeat that process a lot up until the horse would show us that they could consistently do the whole process, meaning walking into the gate, being able to stand inside that gate, and being okay once the door's closed.
And is gate training important?
Yeah, it's vital. Every horse has to be able to properly load into a gate before they're allowed to race. And it's very much against their nature. These are very big horses. They're oftentimes over 1,000 pounds. They're used to these big, wide open spaces. And all of a sudden, you're doing something that is very much against their nature, which is pushing them into this very cramped, tiny space. And if they're not able to do that efficiently and safely, it could become very dangerous for the people around that horse.
Okay. Would you be able to recognize the starting gates at Colonial?
Yeah.
And how is that?
Well, like I said, I worked at Colonial for more than half of my life, and I saw starting gates daily, if not.
Your Honor, permission to publish as what's already been previously admitted as evidence to the jury?
You may, but show it to the witness first, so we'll make sure it's the same exhibit.
Okay. Exhibit. Thank you. Is this an accurate depiction of the starting gates at Colonial, Ms. Bauer?
Yeah, just to be clear, this isn't Southern Charms Gate, but it is a very similar one.
Okay.
Right. Any unnoted objection?
No, Your
Right. Then you may publish the exhibit.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And for the record, Exhibit 1 for plaintiff.
Okay, Ms. Bauer, what's that ledge that's on the left side of the gate right there?
That's called the pontoon. It's where assistant starters like Kenny would actually stand whilst they were loading the horse into that gate.
And why would they stand on that pontoon?
Well, it's in order to not get crushed while they're loading this very large animal into this very cramped space.
Is it hard to load a horse into those gates?
Very. It's, like I said, one of the most challenging and important parts of actually training a horse. It's not in their nature to walk into something so tight and crammed, and if the horse freaks out or doesn't properly load, then it could be very dangerous for the person standing in that small ledge next to that big animal.
And when you were training Southern Charm, was that horse properly loading into those starting gates?
No.
So what did you do about that?
Well, I was trying to follow my training and really focus on lead training and gate training Southern Charm, but just a couple of days in, Jamie actually came in and took him away from me.
Okay, and who's Jamie?
Jamie is the head starter at Colonial.
So to be clear, Jamie's not a racehorse trainer?
No, she is not.
Well, how did Southern Charm's training go with Jamie?
In my opinion, terrible. Jamie had every trainer at Colonial working on Charm at the same time, which was against my advice, and I thought it was a very bad idea.
And why is having every single trainer train a horse against your advice as the head trainer?
Well, like I said before, lead training is very important. If you don't have a personal relationship and this horse doesn't know who to listen to, they could choose not to listen at all. And if you have a horse who can't listen to commands, it could again be very dangerous for the people working around that horse.
Your Honor, permission to publish to the jury what's been previously admitted as...
Well, you've been publishing it on the screen.
Yes, Your Honor.
You have a different exhibit now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Permission to approach the witness?
Yes, you may. You have
Your Honor.
continuous permission to approach this witness.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And that exhibit was previously marked as, what's the alphabet letter for that?
C.
Exhibit C, Your Honor.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Bauer, what is that?
These are Colonial's training policies and procedures.
Are these the same training policies and procedures that were in place when you were working there?
Yes.
Okay. What does Part 3A say?
It says horses will remain on the schooling list as long as necessary to demonstrate the horse's consistent ability to safely enter and exit the starting gate.
Okay, and what's a schooling list?
A schooling list is the list we would put the horses that were not ready to race yet, mostly because they weren't loading properly.
And was Southern Charm showing consistent ability to safely enter and exit those starting gates?
No.
Okay, and Ms. Bauer, what does Part 3B say?
Horses must demonstrate sufficient competence in loading into, standing in, and exiting from the starting gate before the horse may be given a gate card and placed on the starters list.
Okay, and was that horse Southern Charm showing sufficient competence in loading into, standing in, and exiting from starting gates?
No.
No. Was Southern Charm placed on the starters list that morning, that day of the race?
Yes, he was.
And what did you do about that?
Well, I told Jamie that it was a bad idea and Charm wasn't ready to race.
And did Jamie take your advice?
No, she did not.
You said earlier that Jamie took control of Southern Charm's training. How long did Jamie train her for?
Just a few days. She was bossing all of the trainers around, saying that Frankie needed Charm to race and the horse better be ready, otherwise all of her jobs were on the line.
And do you know why Jamie took over the training of Southern Charm?
Jamie wasn't happy with how Charm's gate training was going. It wasn't moving very fast, and she really needed this horse to be ready to race.
And why is it that her and Frankie needed this horse to race?
There weren't a lot of horses that were racing at the time, meaning that Colonial had a short list or short field going on, and that essentially means that they have a possibility of not making as much money. The fewer horses that there are racing at a time means that the people betting have a higher chance of guessing it right, so Colonial will not be making as much money during a singular race.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Southern Charm itself and its experience on the day of the race.
Mm-hmm.
So when was it that Southern Charm arrived at Colonial?
A week before the race.
And how old was Southern Charm when it arrived?
2 years old.
Had Southern Charm ever run a race before that race?
No, this would have been his first.
Did Southern Charm have any prior training before coming to Colonial?
No.
In your opinion, as a head trainer, is a 2-year-old racehorse with no racing experience and 1 week of training ready to race?
No, horses typically take around 3 to 5 weeks to be fully ready to race, and that depends on their age, training, and experience.
And how much more training would you say that Southern Charm needed?
I'd say about another week.
Ms. Bauer, do you still work at Colonial?
No, I felt forced to resign after what they did to Kenny.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Permission to proceed, Your Honor.
You may.
On direct examination, you testified that you were head trainer at Colonial Racetrack for 15 years.
Correct.
And you testified that you have quite a bit of experience training horses.
Correct.
And you believe you're qualified to give opinions here in this courtroom.
Correct.
And when it came time for a head starter position that opened at Colonial, you thought you were the most qualified one for that position.
Yes.
And when that position was filled, it wasn't filled by you.
No.
It was actually filled by Miss Jamie Wright.
Mm-hmm.
So you had
You
to
have to say
drive.
yes or no for the record.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, going back to your experience, you have a lot of experience training horses.
I do.
So you know all the steps that it takes to get a horse into the gate.
I do.
And a part of that process might be to take 2 people to kind of guide them into that gate.
Correct.
But you would agree with me that smacking a horse in the face, that's not a part of that process.
No.
And you would also know quite a bit about safety when handling these horses.
Yes.
So you would agree with me that wearing your helmet is an important thing to do to stay safe around these horses.
I would agree, but I would also say that that wasn't the custom in Colonial, or what was usually done in Colonial.
Okay, but you were aware of the policies.
Yes.
Moment to confer, Your Honor.
You may.
Thank you. permission to proceed?
You may.
So part of your job at Colonial was to analyze the horses when they came in.
Yes,
And you would take them through lead training,
correct.
saddle training,
Yes,
and aerobic training.
yes.
And you were actually in charge of all these for Southern Charm.
For the time that I was training him, yes,
Right, and the time you were training them was only a couple days.
yes.
So you would say about 2 days.
Yeah,
And then the horse raced on the seventh day after you were training the horse.
the horse raced after 7 days, like after arriving at Colonial, but not after 7 days of me personally training this horse.
Right, so there were 5 days from the time you were no longer training the horse to the time the horse raced.
Yes,
And in that time, after you were done training the horse, all it needed was gait training.
yeah, you could say that.
And you would agree with me that gait training is only 20% of what it takes to train a horse to get it ready to race.
No, I would say that gait training is one of the most important parts of training a horse.
Right, but all the process up to gait training takes up 80% of that process.
Okay.
Is that a yes?
No,
So you wouldn't agree with me that training a horse up until the point it's ready to be gait trained isn't 80% of the training that's required?
I would say that there are 4 steps that we usually take when we're training a horse. The first one being lead training, saddle training, conditioning the horse, and then ending with gait training. I would say that in most cases, the 2 that guarantee the safety of the people around this horse would be lead training that horse and gait training that horse. That ensures that this horse can listen to directions and this horse can act safely before a race starts in a cramped space with somebody like Kenny on the pontoon. I would say that saddle training that horse and conditioning that horse are a big part of training it, but I wouldn't say that gait training is just the last 20% or tossing it aside or giving it less importance.
Okay, but you do agree that by the time you were done training the horse, all it needed was gait training?
Yes,
Okay. And actually, the day of the race, you witnessed Southern Charm load
yeah, I did.
into the starting gate
Yes,
several times
yes,
without issue.
yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Bauer, you said earlier that you only trained Southern Charm for a couple of days,
Yes,
correct? Because Jamie took control of that training
yes,
because he needed that horse to race.
yes,
Because there was a short field.
yes,
You also stated earlier that Southern Charm was loading the day of the race pretty well, correct?
correct.
In your opinion, as a 15-year head trainer, if a horse races very well just the day of the race, does that make it competent enough to enter a race?
No, doing it one day does not show consistency or competency. Doing it one day just shows that the horse was able to do it that one day. Just because a horse or anything for that matter is able to do something one day out of 7 a few times in a row when the past 6 days it wasn't able to do it, doesn't show me as a trainer that this horse can consistently load into a gate.
No further questions, Your Honor. May the witness be excused?
Ms. Bauer, thank you for your presence here, and you may collect those exhibits.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Go, Your
You
Honor.
may step down. Thank you. Call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, plaintiff calls Cameron Carter to the stand.
Okay. Ms. Carter? Please remain standing for the oath. You solemnly swear that the testimony you will give will be the truth?
I swear.
You may be seated. Please tell the members of the jury your name and then spell your last name for the record.
My name is Cameron Carter, Carter.
You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Carter, how old are you?
I'm 48 years old.
Ms. Carter, what do you currently do for work?
Well, ever since Kenny died, I was forced back into the work field, and I'm currently an administrative assistant at a tire shop.
Miss Carter, how did Kenny die?
Kenny was killed by an unexperienced young horse that just arrived at Colonial Racetrack.
Miss Carter, did you and Kenny have any children?
Yes, together we had a beautiful son, Kenny Jr., who was 9 years old, and I had 2 children from a previous marriage.
Miss Carter, I want to talk about your husband's employment. Where did he work?
Kenny also worked at Colonial Casino and Racetrack.
How long did he work there?
He worked there for about 15 years.
What was his role at Colonial?
Kenny was an assistant starter, so he assisted with the loading and entering of the gate. So again, the horse is very big and it's being forced into a small confined space. So it's one of the most important jobs at Colonial to ensure that the horse loads into the starting gate safely.
Now, before Kenny's 15 years at Colonial, did he have any other prior experience with horses?
Yes, Kenny loved horses. He worked with horses his entire life.
Now, Ms. Carter, can you tell us a little bit about Colonial Casino and Racetrack?
Well, the racing community is pretty small, so everyone knows everyone. It's almost like a family.
Ms. Carter, how are you involved in that family?
Well, I previously worked at Colonial for 10 years. I was a clocker and a teller.
Can you tell us a little bit about those positions?
Yes, so as a teller, I got more of the business side of Colonial. I would be taking bets at the racetrack, and also as a clocker, I would be on the track timing the horses as they were trained. So much so that the trainers really valued my observation and asked if I had any input to put into their training. And at one point, I did want to become a trainer.
Now, Ms. Carter, I want to talk about Southern Charm. When was the first time that you became aware of Southern Charm?
Well, in one of our last phone calls on March 17th, Kenny would call me as he usually does. We communicate with each other throughout the day. And he was admiring Southern Charm as they were unloading him. And he was talking about how he was such a beautiful horse and looked so strong only to be 2 years old. And then he paused. And after a couple moments, he regained his composure and he stated that Southern Charm had such a strong reaction to the starting gate. And he expressed that after a horse has that much anxiety loading into the starting gate, that even with a lot of training, the horse would never really get rid of that anxiety and still be very uncomfortable.
Did Kenny ever tell anyone about his concerns?
Well, actually, on the same phone call, the reason why he hung up, he stated that he would express his concerns to Jamie, and then the call ended.
Ms. Carter, I want to move on to later that week, the day of the race. When was the first time you heard from Kenny that day?
That's a day I'll never forget. It's the last time Kenny told me he loved me. Like I said, we would talk to each other throughout the day, and he texted me that he was nervous that the race wouldn't continue that day, that there would be a short field. There wasn't enough horses to compete that day.
Why would a short field stop the race?
Well, simply it's bad for business. Some short amount of horses, it's easier for the bettors to place bets and win. They'll lose money.
Okay. When was the next time you heard from your husband that day?
Well, around 8 a.m., Kenny texted me and he seemed pretty shocked. He said that Southern Charm had made the starters list.
Why was Kenny shocked?
Well, throughout the week, the Southern Charm wasn't consistently loading onto the gate and was still having a lot of anxiety, and he just didn't think the horse was ready that day.
Ms. Carter, you worked at Colonial for 10 years, right?
Yes.
In your 10 years of experience at Colonial Casino and Racetrack, have you ever seen a horse go from not being cleared to being cleared with only a week's worth of training?
In my 10 years of experience, no, I've never seen that.
Ms. Carter, after everything happened, did you ever speak with anyone from Colonial?
Well, after Kenny died, Jamie Wright, the head starter, did reach out to me and apologize, and he stated that if he had another chance, if he could do it all over again, that he would have done things differently.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Carter. First and foremost, I'd like to offer my condolences to you. I know this can't be easy to do. May we proceed?
Yes.
You said you worked at Colonial
Yes.
as a clocker and a mutual teller.
Yes.
So you never worked with the horses directly.
Well, I would say I did work with them directly, being on the track and timing them. I would have to see them and be in close proximity to work with them.
Did you ever have to train a horse? You never had to train a horse, right?
No, I wasn't a trainer.
You never had to move a horse into the field or into a gate.
No.
And to work at Colonial, you filled up an employment application.
Yes.
And you were fired from Colonial because you lied on that employment application.
Well, I wouldn't say I lied.
Ms. Carter, Your Honor, now directing court and counsel to what has been previously admitted as Exhibit E. You can
Okay.
find it on tab 15 of your binder.
Do you have a copy for her, or otherwise the court will provide her with it?
It's- Yep. Here you go, Ms. Carter. Ms. Carter, this is your employment application, right?
Yes.
Has your name on top
Yes.
and your signature at the bottom.
Yes.
Where it says, have you ever been convicted of a crime? There are two boxes, yes and no, and you cross no.
Yes.
So you lied on this employment application.
I wouldn't say I lied. At the time, I felt like I didn't commit a crime. Also, right next to it said disclosure would not necessarily bar employment, so it's not like I lied to try and get a job.
That's understandable. This is from 2005, correct?
Yes.
Now introducing court and counsel to Exhibit F, Your Honor, in tab 16. Ms. Carter, you said you did not lie in that employment application about your conviction. This is an order of the court, correct?
Yes.
And it has your name on it.
Yes.
And it says you've been adjudicated guilty.
I had to plead guilty to provide for my family. I had children to provide for, and like again, since Kenny is dead, I have to provide for my family once again.
Ms. Carter, but at this time, Mr. Carter had not passed away. Is that correct?
No, but I still needed to work to provide for my family.
Yes, Ms. Carter. But in that application, it said it wouldn't bar employment, yet you still lied.
Again, I felt like I didn't lie. This happened over almost 20 years ago. We're talking about Kenny's death now.
Ms. Carter, this wasn't over 20 years ago, but it does say it was for the crime of embezzlement, correct?
That's what it says on the
Which is
paper,
a-
yes.
Which is a crime of dishonesty.
That's what it says on the paper, yes.
And you took a plea deal and were convicted.
That says on the paper, yes.
And then you lied on that employment application.
Again, I wouldn't say that I lied.
Ms. Carter, you worked at Colonial, so you knew the rules of safety.
Yes.
You knew that everyone in the field that was working with the horses needed to wear a helmet.
Yes, I did know that, but it was pretty common for employees at Colonial to not follow any safety regulations and not be apprehended. It was pretty custom.
But you knew that those rules existed.
Yes.
And you knew that Mr. Carter himself didn't like wearing his helmet.
Yes.
You knew that he didn't like wearing his helmet because it was hot,
He's told me before, yes.
because it was uncomfortable.
He's told me before, yes.
But he knew that this job was dangerous.
Yes.
And you knew that this job was dangerous too, since you worked there.
Yes.
Ms. Carter, you'd agree with me that in the text messages that you had with Mr. Carter that morning, that it never says, your husband never says to you that he felt unsafe about Southern Charm.
He didn't outright state it, but he was very concerned and shocked that Southern Charm was racing that day and that he would be in the loading gate with him.
But you'd agree with me that it never said he felt afraid.
No,
It never said he felt unsafe.
not in that text message, no.
But as a matter of fact, what it did say was that he trusted Jamie Wright's judgment.
Yes, it was actually one of the last mistakes he's ever made.
Okay, but in the last 15 years of Mr. Carter working at Colonial, Miss Jamie Wright never made a mistake.
I cannot say that I agree or not.
But that's why your husband trusted Jamie Wright.
He had to trust Jamie's right because that was the head starter. He really didn't have another choice. That's his boss.
But Mr. Carter and Jamie Wright were friends for 10 years.
Not to my knowledge, but
Miss Carter, you never saw the horse Southern Charm.
no.
You never witnessed it with your own eyes.
No, only when Kenny saw him and we spoke over the phone.
But Mr. Carter never trained Southern Charm, is that correct?
He assisted with Southern Charm going into the loading gate.
Mr. Carter never trained Southern Charm.
In the other aspects of race training, no.
Aside from the date of the accident, when he loaded the horse into the gate, he never trained Southern Charm.
It was my impression that he did train Southern Charm to loading gate.
But Mr. Carter never said anything specifically to Colonial or any of its higher-up employees about Southern Charm.
In one of our last phone calls, he hung up because he was going to tell Jamie Wright his concerns.
But you yourself don't know if he ever did tell Colonial.
I don't see any reason why he wouldn't.
So everything that you've been telling this jury has been from information that you've received from other people.
Other people, as in my late husband, yes.
Yes, Ms. Carter, I understand you want the jury to hear that. But my question was more specific. You never heard it from other people. You only heard it from other people.
Heard what exactly?
Everything about Southern Charm, everything about the horse, you only heard from other people.
No, I heard it from Kenny.
Other people. Not your own eyes.
No.
No more further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Very brief. Ms. Carter, can you remind us why we're here today?
We're here because my husband was killed by a young, unexperienced horse at Colonial Casino and Racetrack.
Does that have anything to do with your history?
No, not at all.
No further questions, Your Honor. At this time, may this witness be excused?
Yes, Ms. Cameron, you may step down. Go, Ms. Carter, thank you. Any further witnesses from the plaintiff?
No further witnesses, Your Honor. However, at this time, before the plaintiff rests, we do plan on reading in a sworn statement from an unavailable witness, which has already been admitted into.
All right, well,
Evidence.
previously marked as what exhibit?
Yes, Your Honor. One moment, please. For Your Honor's attention, it should be marked as tab 9. And it's not exactly an exhibit, however, it has been discussed and admitted to evidence during a pretrial order.
What saith the defense? Any previous, no further objections, then you may read what is now going to be plaintiff's exhibit
Plaintiff Exhibit 3, Your Honor.
3. Yes, sir. You may read that into evidence.
This is a sworn statement by Danny Mahan, the EMT who was at Colonial Casino the day of the race. I was dispatched to the starting gate at 11:56 a.m. The radio call indicated that an assistant starter had been knocked unconscious by one of the racehorses. I arrived at the starting gate at 11:59 a.m., and when I arrived, Kenny Carter Sr. was on the ground. Carter was unresponsive, Carter was not breathing, and I could not locate a pulse. Later in the statement, Danny Mahan goes on to say that Carter was pronounced deceased upon arrival at Belcare Hospital at 12:16 p.m. It appeared from the immediate severe bruising to the left temporal region of Carter's face between his left eye and left ear that he had suffered significant blunt force trauma.
Right.
This time, plaintiff rests, Your Honor.
Right. Members of the jury, the plaintiffs have rested their case. We're going to take just a brief recess so you can stretch, use the bathroom. But please remember, during the break, do not discuss this case among yourselves. Don't allow anybody else to talk to you about the case. And I'm going to bring you back here in 10 minutes. Okay, enjoy your recess. Right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming back timely from the break. At this time, the defense will present its case. You may proceed.
Your Honor, the defense calls Ms. Frankie Fonseca to the stand.
All right. Ms. Fonseca, please approach the witness stand to be sworn. You solemnly swear the testimony you will give will be the truth.
I do.
All right, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself to the jurors by telling them your name and then spell your last name for the record.
Well, good evening. My name is Frankie Fonseca. That's spelled Frankie-Fonsetti, and I am the owner-operator of Colonial Casino and Racetrack.
You may inquire.
Ms. Fonseca, how long have you been the owner of Colonial?
Oh my goodness, it's been over 30 years. I took over from my pa, you see, when he passed away.
What are you doing your day to day?
It seemed mighty boring to you, but a bunch of business stuff, marketing, advertising, all that nonsense.
And when it comes to decisions at the racetrack regarding racing, how do you go about it?
Well, that I rely on for Jamie. She's my head starter, and she's the one I consult.
Why do you rely on Jamie?
Well, really, she's got the expertise, and also she's with these horses on an individual level. You see, each horse is its own personality, so you really have to know each one.
When it comes to safety, how important is safety?
It's our number one priority.
Why?
Well, I mean, these are still animals at the end of the day. I mean, a horse is a horse.
Is that something you tell all your employees?
Oh, absolutely. They know it from the get-go, so it's in our policies and procedures when they're hired. They get a copy themselves, and we go through it with them, so they certainly do know.
Aren't these horses trained, though?
Oh, yeah, of course we do train them, but, I mean, you could train a horse, but it doesn't replace experience, and it doesn't replace caution.
Who's caution?
Well, I mean, everybody's got to be cautious.
Now, regarding your policies and procedures, I mean, the jury has heard a lot about these policies. Now directing court and counsel to what has been previously admitted as Exhibit C and D. Permission to publish. I'll just get them.
Thank
Here
you.
you go, Ms. Fonseca. Now, Ms. Fonseca, these are your policies and procedures. Could you tell the jury what Section 3, subsection D, right out there, says about horse training or horse at the gate?
Oh, this part just is talking about if a horse is misbehaving at the gate, what to do. And in this instance, if a horse is misbehaving, we can scratch it. And that simply means that we just take it out of the race and then we just go ahead and retrain it.
And who can do that?
I mean, so it would come to Jamie because she is a head starter. So that would be the person making that decision.
But if Jamie is at the gate, if Jamie is at starting the race, and there's someone at the gate who's having some trouble with the horse, what can an employee at the starting gate do?
Well, we always have open lines of communication. So what we would do is we got walkie-talkies. So it'd be a simple matter just picking up that walkie-talkie and saying, "Hey, Jamie, this horse shouldn't race today," and it would be scratched.
When it comes to safety equipment, there's this policy that says that any staff working with the horses has to wear a helmet and a safety flap jacket. Why do you have that rule?
Oh, I mean, that rule is for safety. So, I mean, we do provide the equipment that's standard in the industry. So, you got your flak jacket, which really is meant to protect your internal organs and also your ribs as well. And then we also provide a helmet. So that helmet is meant to protect your head, and that is industry standard.
Who enforces that?
Well, in our place particular, that would be Jamie as well.
Again, if Jamie can't see someone not wearing a helmet or a flap jacket, what can be done?
Well, I mean, it would be lovely if we could be in every place at once. That would be great, but I mean, at some point, it does come down to personal responsibility. So that's why we have those policies, just to remind everybody. And if Jamie sees anybody without it, you're sure to get a talking to from her. So we do our best, but at the end of the day, it's on each individual, because they know that, you know, horses are dangerous.
Turning to the date of the accident, March 24, 2018. How did you start that day?
Oh, goodness. So I do remember that day. I was on the couch in my office because I slept there that night before. And so about 6:30, I gave up on any more sleep. And I decided to start my day. And that looked like I went out and I tried to find Blake and Jamie. And I didn't find Blake, but I did find Jamie. So I talked with Jamie a little bit. And then after talking with Jamie, I did go and did the rest of my rounds, basically.
What did you talk to Jamie about?
Oh, well, we talked about the horses for a bit, of course, and then we did mention Southern Charm as well. We talked about it.
How did Jamie look that day?
Well, I mean, Jamie gets a little high-strung, so Jamie was a little bit frazzled that day. So, yeah, just a little bit frazzled, I'd say.
Why's that?
Well, she gets a little bit bent out of shape when we have what's called short fields. So short fields are basically just, you know, when you have less horses.
Are they common?
Yeah, they do happen all the time, but she still gets out of shape.
Then why would it cause concern for Jamie?
Well, really, there is some financial aspect of it. So when you have a short field, what happens is you essentially don't, like, the odds of winning are higher. So it can be financially, you know, not as great for us, but that's okay. I think really what she was concerned about was that if our business does well, then our employees, you know, do better as well. So I think she was just trying to make sure that our people had, you know, income to take care of their families and all that. So.
Can someone win regardless of a short field?
Oh, of course. I mean, those are just the odds. So even if you don't have a short field, if you get a certain combination of things, then, you know, you can win big. And I think that's what's so exciting about horse racing, to be honest with you, is you never know what your luck's going to bring that day.
Now, you heard Ms. Bowers take the stand, and she testified that you really don't like short fields. How do you respond to that?
I mean, no business owner likes a short field, I'd say, but, I mean, as I said, they happen all the time, so they're common.
How does that affect business?
Well, I mean, in terms of business, I mean, that's fine. As I said, it happens all the time. Really, I did hear a little bit of what she had been saying about me, and really, it wasn't really a reputation. It is a reputational thing, I'd say, because reputation is, as she said, everything in this industry. So if you don't have a good reputation, I mean, nobody's going to want to work for you. Nobody's going to want to go to your track or nothing. So really, that's why we do prioritize safety, is just to make sure that, you know, it is good business sense and it's people sense as well.
Do you know how Southern Charm acted at the gates on March 24th?
I didn't at that time. I learned afterwards a little bit that it had a little bit of hesitation, that they had to guide it in a bit.
Did you witness Southern Charm earlier in the week?
Oh yeah, I had. So I did see it throughout the week, and the day before I saw it loading just fine multiple times actually, and then the day of too as well. It was loading into that gate as well, just fine.
Southern Charm loaded the day before?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
And the morning of?
Yes.
Did you see Southern Charm load?
Yes, I did.
Do you know how that Mr. Carter wasn't wearing a helmet at the gates?
I heard that after, yeah.
How did you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I was upset about it. He really should have been wearing it, and I feel like that would have made a difference.
Do you know that Mr. Carter slapped the horse?
I also found that out after as well.
How do you feel about that?
We don't have that sort of behavior at our racetrack. It's just simply not done. So when I heard he did that, I was not happy to hear it. That's for sure.
Why is that?
I mean, we have policies in particular as to how to treat a horse. So we don't like any sort of abuse or mistreatment or really any slapping of the animal either. It can, spook a horse too. So I wouldn't condone it at all at a racetrack.
What did you do when you found out about the accident that had happened?
Well, immediately after, so we went into like a crisis management mode. So when I hear about it, I was in my office at the time, so I heard over the walkie-talkie that we have. So basically, we do have an EMT on scene. So the EMT rushed over, tended to Kenny, got him to an ambulance, and took him to the hospital. So
What did you do about the horse?
well, the horse was scratched. So as I said, he was taken out, and he wasn't allowed to race that day.
What did you do about the race?
Oh, the race went on still.
Why?
Well, I mean, I didn't think it was much sense at the time to let everybody just rush out and everything while we were trying to get Kenny some help. That would have been counterproductive, I'd say, at the least.
Just to get some things cleared for the jury, did your head starter say anything to you the morning of the race that Southern Charm wasn't fit to race that day?
No, my head starter, Jamie, didn't say anything like that, no.
Did your head trainer, Blake Bowers, say anything to you that morning of the race that Southern Charm wasn't fit to race?
No, Blake didn't say a word about that to me, no.
Did you say Southern Charm was unfit to race?
No, not at all.
Did Mr. Kenneth Carter himself say anything to you about Southern Charm being unfit to race?
No, Kenny didn't.
Did he raise any red flags?
No, not at all. Not
Did-
at one.
Did any of your employees make any mention that Southern Charm was unfit to race that morning?
I didn't hear a peep from anyone about that, no.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Your Honor, may I inquire?
You may.
Good afternoon, Ms. Fonseca.
Good afternoon.
Blake Bowers was your head trainer at Colonial, correct?
Yeah, Blake was.
Understood. And Blake had been an employee of Colonial for about 30 years, correct?
Yeah, he was there a spell, yeah.
Okay, so it's fair to say for a 30-year employee who you named your head trainer, you trusted Blake Bowers.
Yeah, definitely, I did.
And you're aware that Blake Bowers did not think Southern Charm was ready to race?
Well, he didn't bring it up to me on that day, no.
Understood. Now, speaking of the day, the morning of the race, March 24th, 2018, you told us that you woke up at your office, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did.
You went down to the track,
Yep, bright and early.
and you were excited to see Southern Charm race.
I mean, yeah, it was exciting for everyone, I'll say.
It's a new horse.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone was excited.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But then you had a conversation with Miss Jamie Wright, your head starter. True?
I did. After I woke up, I went out and I found Jamie.
Okay. And during that conversation, you said that you discussed horses.
Yeah, we did. We did. In fact, yes.
Okay. Can you recall what Miss Wright told you about Southern Charm?
Well, I do believe at that time she said that Southern Charm was on the schooling list at that time, when I talked to her at least.
Okay. So Southern Charm was on the schooling list the very morning of the race?
Yeah, bright and early, yes. It hadn't been taken off the schooling list yet.
So at no point throughout Southern Charm being at Colonial Racetrack was Southern Charm ever cleared to race until the very morning of the race?
It was clear the day of the race, yes.
Okay. And do you remember anything that Jamie Wright told you about Southern Charm besides it's not cleared to race yet?
No, I can't recall. I don't know if there was something in particular you were referring to, but in general, it was mostly just talking about the horses in general, and then Southern Charm in specific.
Southern Charm in specific, but you said you don't recall, correct?
Well, I don't know what you're referring to specifically.
Yes, sorry. You spoke about Southern Charm, and you can't remember if Jamie Wright said that Southern Charm was ready to race. True?
Oh, at that time, it was. She said it was still on the schooling list, but
Okay.
I don't believe she worked with it quite at that time yet, doing the starting exercises, from my understanding.
So it's your understanding that Southern Charm hadn't been worked with for the starting exercises that very morning?
Well, not yet, because you have to keep in mind this was like 6:30 in the morning. So I mean, we're just starting our day. So I don't think she had gotten to it quite yet. But I mean, I couldn't say for certain. You had to ask her, to be honest.
Understood. But then after that conversation, Southern Charm was cleared to race.
Later that day, yeah.
Understood. Now, Ms. Fonseca, we've heard a lot of testimony here today regarding a helmet.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. You have a policy regarding your employees to wear those helmets.
Oh yes, we do.
Do you ever meet with your employees to discuss this?
Yeah. In fact, when they're doing the onboarding, that's when we do discuss everything in the policies.
It's your testimony here today that you personally meet with your employees to discuss this policy.
Well, it may not be me personally. It may be Jamie.
Okay. So, Jamie, Miss Wright, your head starter, correct?
Yeah, it would be someone in management that knows the policy as well, so that they could go through it with them.
Understood. So it's Jamie Wright's job to enforce these policies, true?
Yes, that is her responsibility.
Understood. We also heard a policy regarding abuse of a horse.
Yes, I do have one in there about
Okay.
abuse of the horse.
And it's your testimony here today that slapping a horse on the snout is abuse?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it was abuse specifically. If you want to talk about exactly what he did in doing that, sometimes I have heard that that's one technique that they might use to try and position the horse, but it's something we don't condone, you see. So maybe not abuse, I'd say, but under our policies, I would say mistreatment, it might be characterized as better.
Okay, so you wouldn't call it abuse, but you would call it mistreatment.
Yes, because it's not the treatment that we would like.
Understood. Now, Ms. Fonseca, I want to talk to you about the day of the race after the incident with Southern Charm. Shortly after the incident occurred, and the
Yes.
EMTs took Kenny away,
Yes.
you still ran the race.
Yeah, at that time we didn't know anything about the severity of his condition. So,
And you would, sorry.
oh no, I'm sorry. I was just saying that, our real priority at that time was just making sure he got to safety and care that he needed. And after that, we still ran it because we didn't want to stampede out. And so that was the decision there.
I understand, Ms. Fonseca. You said it was your concern that Kenny got care and treatment. Is that true?
Yes, of course. And that is why we keep an EMT there on scene, just in the rare event, something happened. We never had anything like this happen before at our track. And, really it was just a precaution. But I'm glad we did have an EMT there that day. And we do have an EMT that day on race days.
So it was your concern that Kenny got care, but Ms. Fonseca, at any point after this occurred, did you check up on Kenny at all?
Oh, of course.
It's your
Yeah.
Sorry, please.
Oh, no, of course. I mean, later, I did hear about Kenny, and I heard the tragic news, and, it's just heartbreaking.
It's your testimony here today that you heard Kenny, but my apologies, my question might have been a little different. Did you ever check up on Kenny or the Carter family personally?
Well, I think someone told me about what had unfortunately happened to Kenny, and then I did send, I think, a gift basket. I mean, what do you do, in such a loss? It just doesn't seem like enough, but I felt the least I could do was to send something, just to show that we care, and we're here if they need anything.
Understood, Ms. Fonseca. I have no further questions.
Read it back.
Ms. Fonseca, you're aware that Blake Bowers was the trainer for a bit, but how long did Blake have the horse Southern Charm for?
Well, I do believe that Blake was training it maybe a couple days. He did did the initial evaluation of the horse, and then worked with it maybe a couple days, and then afterwards, I do believe it was Jamie that took over the training for the rest of the time.
What did Blake say in that initial evaluation?
Well, I do believe that that she was saying it was a fine horse. It was a 2-year-old horse at the time. it was riding just fine. I mean, you get the saddle on it, ride it, no problem. It did seem that the only real issue was the starting issue. So that's why I do believe they worked on it for about 5 days.
Had you ever seen Mr. Carter hit a horse before?
No, I hadn't. No, I still haven't.
What did you do for the Carter family after the accident happened?
I mean, I did my best to reach out, and I sent a big gift basket, and I wanted to let them know that I'm here. You know, we're all here. We're all cared about Kenny. He was with us for so long, and I was in shock at the time too, and I could just imagine what they were going through. So I know it's never sufficient when anybody passes, but I sent something and just let them know that we were here.
Miss Fonseca, just a quick question to clarify something for the jury.
Mm-hmm.
Would you sacrifice an employee for the profit margin of a single race?
No, I'm taken aback. I apologize, but that's just not. You gotta understand that this is a family business. I've been doing this for 60 years since I was 7. I grew up on the track, and I mean I'm the last of the Fonsettis. There's not any after me. I mean there's no ring upon this finger. I ain't got no kids. I mean this is it. So everybody here is my family. I've known them for decades, and I want to do right by them. They're the people I see every day, and I'm at the track 24/7 sometimes. So I mean, it's just I'm flabbergasted. That's not how we do things.
Further questions, Your Honor?
Ms. Fonseca, you may step down.
Thank you, Honor. Would you like these?
Yes, please. Thank you. You may call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. This time the defense calls Miss Jamie Wright to the stand.
Hi, good afternoon. Please approach the witness stand, remain standing to be sworn. Please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you will give is the truth. Yes. You may be seated. Please introduce yourself to the jurors by telling them your name, and then please spell your last name for the record.
Hi, my name is Jamie Wright, JamieWright.
You may inquire.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Wright, throughout trial, the jury's heard a lot about you being a head starter. Can you explain to them what that is?
Yes. So I supervise everything on the track, everything from the training of the horses all the way up to which horses get to start, and actually assisting and managing them starting.
How long have you been doing this?
I have been doing this now for 12 years, but I have been at Colonial for 20.
Earlier you mentioned you get to decide which horses are going to be in the races. How do you come to that decision?
It's just dependent on whether or not the horse has completed their training or not.
What goes into the training?
Well, there's different phases of training. Mainly the horses will go through lead, gait, and saddle training. And it just, depends on whether or not the horses has completed each stage.
How long does that usually take?
It's really just dependent on the horse. Sometimes we get horses in that are done with training within, a week. It really is just dependent on how well the horse is doing and whether or not they have completed each stage of the trainings.
Throughout the trial, the jury's heard opinions that 2 weeks is not long enough. Is it?
Like I said, it really is just dependent on whether or not each individual horse has completed their training. So 2 weeks, 1 week, it really doesn't matter. Once the horse is done training, that's when they're ready to go.
Okay, the members of the jury also heard that Southern Charm was only 2 years old. Is that too young?
It is young for a horse, but not too young. I mean, that's the age that you start a horse at, and I mean, that's a good time. They're really good at grasping the concepts.
And when Southern Charm arrived at Colonial Racetrack, who was in charge of training the horse?
At first, it was Blake Bowers, and then I eventually took over the training.
Why did you take over the training?
Well, Southern Charm was doing really well in all other aspects. Southern Charm completed training for the lead training and the saddle training and was riding super well. The only thing that was left was for Southern Charm to go through the gate training, and I'm really good at working one-on-one with the horses and gaining that personable connection with them. So I decided to take it on and not delay anything any further.
Ms. Wright, I now want to talk to you about safety at Colonial. What is
Sure.
safety like there?
Oh, well, we take safety very, very seriously. Every single one of our employees, like as soon as they're hired, they're given our policies and procedures. And within that, they are told that they have to wear a helmet and a flak jacket, especially for all of our starters. They have to have that on at all times in their duty. And we also do give that flak jacket and that helmet to each individual that comes and works at Colonial.
Would you recognize a helmet from Colonial if I showed it to you?
Oh, of course. They're all uniform with one another, and they're all very high grade.
Your Honor, at this time, permission to publish what has been previously admitted as Exhibit J, and Your Honor can find that on tab 20 of Your Honor's binder.
You may proceed.
Ms. Wright, can you tell the members of the jury what we're looking at here?
That's Colonial's helmet that we give to every single employee.
Okay, and why do you give each employee this helmet?
Well, as we all know, we're working with big animals at Colonial. I mean, horses are bigger than humans in general. So just like us, though, they do get a lot of emotions. They can get startled at times, and being confined in tight spaces or being told, something that's out of their nature, it could startle them from time to time. So just for everyone's own precaution, safety, we give those out, and we hope people wear them to protect their heads and prevent themselves from really getting hurt in case the horse just acts out of nature.
Whose job was it to make sure that this helmet was worn by the employees?
Well, there was no set person that was responsible. However, I did, over time take on some responsibility in that regard, because I would go around and scold the people. So anytime someone would see me and they wouldn't have the helmet, I'd look at them and they knew to put that helmet on.
Did you ever have to tell Kenny to put his helmet on?
Many times. Kenny was not a fan of the helmet.
Okay, and we learned throughout trial that Kenny wasn't wearing his helmet on the day of March 18th. Why?
Well, I don't mean to speak ill of, my friend Kenny, but Kenny just wasn't a big fan of the helmets, especially on hot days. He really just didn't like to wear them, so I would always give Kenny a look, and he would typically put it right on because he knew I was coming over there right away.
Were you close with Kenny?
Oh, of course. We worked together for many years, and we grew really close over the years, working together from morning to night, every day.
What was Kenny's reputation like at Colonial?
He was known to be a really good starter. He has so much expertise in it that a lot of people considered him to be almost like the head starter, right with me.
I now want to talk to you about the morning of the race. Can you tell the members of the jury how that morning started?
So that morning I had got to the track, and I was trying to train Southern Charm a little bit more with the gate training. And that morning Southern Charm was doing perfectly well. It's like he was not having a single issue or even a movement.
Was Southern Charm cleared to race?
Well, I'm the one who makes that decision. So when that morning I saw that Southern Charm was having no issues, and I know that horses, once they're gate trained, they're really gate trained. They really get the concept. So when I saw that the past few days has been a really steady progression, and then the day before he was loading nearly perfectly the whole day, and the day of he was, I'm the one who said, okay, he's ready to start.
Okay, what happened after Southern Charm was cleared to race?
Well, after Southern Charm was cleared to race, he was assigned to Kenny.
Okay, and what happened when he was assigned to Kenny to be loaded?
Well, Southern Charm didn't load. Kenny did try to grab another starter to help him load Southern Charm in, but it wasn't working.
Okay, what did Kenny do when that didn't work?
Well, when Kenny saw that Southern Charm wasn't loading, he started getting a little frustrated and ended up smacking Southern Charm pretty badly up in the nose, and it wasn't that good to see at all.
Is that a normal technique that starters use to get horses into the gate?
No. That's not something we would ever condone. Like abuse towards animals? No.
Okay. Now, the members of the jury learned that you spoke to Miss Fonseca on the day of the race. What did you two talk about?
We talked about the potential for a short field, and just that was pretty much it. She told me that we may have a short field, and I said okay.
Okay, does Miss Fonseca have any authority to put a horse on the starters list?
No. I'm the one who makes that decision solely, and Miss Fonseca wouldn't go around me to do that.
Okay, did anybody express any concerns to you about Southern Charm being on the list?
No, not at all. I mean, anyone should and probably would have felt comfortable to tell me because of how long I've been there and I mean how open I am to everybody. So I don't see why anyone wouldn't bring up concerns.
Looking back with the benefit of hindsight, as you as the person who decided Southern Charm was going to be in this race, would you have done anything differently?
I of course would. I mean, I lost my best friend. Like, Kenny was one of the best friends that I had on the track. And I mean, I wouldn't have lost my, friend because of that race, but I truly couldn't have known, on that day that Southern Charm, wasn't fit to race. I mean, he was perfectly fit to race in all regards. So I really just didn't know that was the result of it.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor.
You make a seat.
Miss Wright, you're the head starter at Colonial, correct?
Correct.
And you worked at Colonial for 20 years.
Yes.
You oversee all the aspects of Colonial.
Correct. Yeah.
You make sure that things are done right at Colonial.
For the most part. I mean, I can't control everybody. That's why we give out those employee, procedures and policies. So.
Let's talk about how you handled Southern Charm. So Southern Charm arrived at Colonial 1 week before the race, correct?
Correct.
And Southern Charm was placed on that schooling list, correct?
Correct.
And the schooling list means horses aren't ready to race, correct?
Right, but that can be changed at any time.
And you have the final say in whether a horse is cleared to race and be removed from that schooling list, correct?
Yes, correct.
The morning of the race, Southern Charm was still on that schooling list, correct?
Yes, but I mean, it was only by my own choice. Southern Charm really didn't need to be on that schooling list after the training that morning.
But Southern Charm was on the schooling list the morning of the race, correct?
At the start of the morning, yes.
Then you had a conversation with your boss, Miss Fonseca, correct?
Yes, correct.
And it was after the conversation is when Southern Charm was removed from the schooling list onto the stars list.
Yes, because once I was done with my conversation, I could get back to the training with Southern Charm. So then once I finished my training with Southern Charm, I found that Southern Charm was ready.
Okay, let's talk about what happened when Southern Charm was removed from that schooling list onto the stars list. So you assigned Southern Charm to Mr. Carter.
Yes.
You saw Mr. Carter attempting to load Southern Charm, correct?
Yes.
And Southern Charm and Mr. Carter was having issues loading the horse.
Just for a brief moment, so that's why he grabbed somebody else, which is something that typically happens.
But he was having issues. Load that horse.
He just needed a second person at that moment, so he went to grab it. But yes, he was having issues.
And as a head starter, you didn't say anything or do anything?
There was a lot going on. I was 5 gates away. I am the the only head starter there. So, you know, with Kenny being so experienced, if he truly was having a problem, he normally would reach out, say something, stop what he was doing. But Kenny seemed like he really had it all under control at the time.
He seemed like he had it under control, but he was struggling with that horse, correct?
Well, it's not something that's abnormal. Horses, you know, there are times when horses do need two people to get them into the gate.
And he didn't offer help.
Like I said, I was 5 stalls away watching everybody. You know, like I didn't only have Kenny to watch.
You didn't think about stopping Kenny.
I mean, I truly didn't know that, you know, the result of this would be Kenny, you know, getting hit in the head. With what I've seen Kenny do, I truly thought that his experience would be enough to help him because, I mean, he's been working there almost as long as me, so.
And you didn't see Kenny with a helmet on, correct?
I don't think so. Mm-mm.
And you would say that you're the person in charge to enforce wearing of the helmets, correct?
For the most part, I took on that. But everybody's responsible for themselves, like as it says in the policies.
But you can't tell me that there's somebody else other than you that's responsible for enforcing these policies.
Each individual employee.
There's no one else above that ensures that these policies are enforced.
I try my best when I can, but especially with somebody like Kenny, who I have frequently had to tell with the helmet, sometimes it just passes my mind. I think a look is good enough.
Yet you just watched Kenny struggle and you didn't do anything.
I mean, Kenny only struggled for a split second before he went to grab an assistant starter, which then I figured they had it all under control, and I focused my attention back onto some other issues that were going on.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Read it.
Permission to proceed, Your Honor. Ms. Wright, on cross-examination, you were asked a lot about your decision to clear Southern Charm. Did you have any reason to believe Southern Charm wasn't safe to race that day?
No, I had no reason at all to believe that Southern Charm was unfit to race.
No further questions, Your Honor. May this witness be excused?
Yes. Thank you very much for your presence. You may stand.
Thank you.
Any further witnesses from the defense?
No, Your Honor. This time, the defense rests its case in chief.
All right, members of the jury, both the plaintiff and the defendants or the defense have rested their cases. There's some procedural matters I need to take up with the attorneys, so I'm going to give you another break. It's going to be 10 minutes, so I need you back here at 7:10. And thank you all for agreeing to work a little later tonight so we can get this case to you. Thank you. All right, members of the jury, both the defense and the plaintiff have rested their cases. At this time, the attorneys will present what are called closing arguments. As I told you about the openings, what the lawyers say during their closing argument is not evidence. I'm going to ask you to listen very carefully, very closely to what the lawyers are going to say to you. The plaintiff will go first because they have the burden of proof. They'll be followed by the defense, and then the plaintiff will then have a rebuttal argument after the defense has spoken. At this time, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court.
You may.
Counsel, members of the jury, we've all been on an airplane. I want you to imagine an airline with a brand new exciting plane. It's a brand new plane. They want it flying. They want to start making money off of it. But there's one problem. This airline is a head mechanic who says, hold on a second, this plane has to pass certain safety checks. But the airline, they've already talked about this plane. They've already sold tickets for the plane. And customers are actually already lining up at the gate to fly on this airplane. So what do? Despite the warnings, they let the airplane fly. And when the inevitable happens, and that plane doesn't make it back, it wasn't because of an accident that occurred in the air. It's because the airline allowed that plane to fly. Now, why do I bring this up? Members of the jury, we've heard this story before. In fact, it's the story that you've been hearing all evening. It's the story about Colonial Casino and Racetrack. Colonial Casino, that's the airline. This new exciting airplane, that's the horse. And the head mechanic who put the airline on notice that it did not pass the safety checks, well, that's the head trainer, Blake Bowers, who you heard from right here. And when Blake Bowers, the head trainer, was having a problem with the airline, what did they do? With the horse, what did they do to Blake Bowers? They took Blake Bowers off of the horse and put someone else who wasn't the head trainer to train the horse because they wanted it to race, because they sold the tickets, their reputation was on the line, and the people were already there. Which is why, members of the jury, throughout this, we're going to prove three things. I'm going to show you how we prove these three things. One, Colonial Casino had control of the horse at all times. We heard testimony here today that Jamie Wright, the head starter, made all the decisions, chose what to enforce, and more importantly, chose what not to enforce. Regarding helmets, regarding which horses were going to race, and more importantly, regarding what starters were going to race those horses. Now, the second point that I'm going to discuss is Southern Charm was young and inexperienced. We knew it. We have Blake Bowers who says that horses take 2 to 5 weeks to be fully trained and ready to go. That horse was there for a week. And you know who else knew it? Jamie Wright. Which is why the decision wasn't made until the morning of to allow that horse to race. And the third point that I'm going to discuss is that Colonial Casino cut corners. They didn't wait 2 weeks. They didn't wait 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks like the head trainer recommends. Colonial Casino waited 1 week and said, you know what? This horse is ready to race. So what do we have to decide? What is the claim that the plaintiff here is bringing? It's a claim called negligence. And as attorneys, we have to be very careful not to misstate the law, so I have it right up here. Negligence. The term negligence as used in the instructions is the failure to use a certain degree of care that an ordinarily careful person would use. Now, did anything that we hear today, did that sound careful? Was it careful when Southern Charm arrived and was placed on the schooling list, not allowed to race? That was careful. And was it careful when that horse was on the list every single day after that until the day of the race? It was careful then, but was it careful when they allowed the horse to race on the last day? No. Now, negligence. We're talking about Colonial Casino and Racetrack. However, the next thing I want to discuss is a fancy legal term called vicarious liability. And all that means is that Colonial, the defendant in this case, is responsible for the actions and, more importantly, the failures of their employees. Any choice or failure to make a choice that their employees, whether that be Miss Frankie Fonseca or Miss Jamie Wright, their head starter, made, that falls on Colonial. They are responsible. So you've heard a lot of facts, you've heard a lot of testimony, but how should you weigh this in your mind? I'm sure we've all heard the term beyond a reasonable doubt, whether it be from TV, whether it be from a friend, or whether it be from a movie. That is the burden of proof, the weight that you have to carry, what you have to prove in a criminal trial. You cannot have a reasonable doubt in your mind that something did or did not happen. That is not the burden of proof in today's case, as this is a civil matter. The burden of proof in today's case is something called the preponderance of the evidence. And that simply means more likely than not. Is it more likely than not that Colonial, Casino, and Racetrack acted negligently, failed to use the care that an ordinary careful person would have? Now, to prove negligence, you'll be given a verdict form, and you're going to make the decision if we prove these 4 things. Now, I know it might look a little intimidating, but that's why we're going to break it down step by step. The first step is, did the defendant have a duty? And that is not in dispute today. Colonial Casino was the employer, and they have a duty to all of their employees to provide a reasonably safe work environment. So the only answer for did they have a duty to protect their employees, that's going to be yes. Now this next step. This is the main point of contention here today. Breach. Did they breach that duty that they owed? Members of the jury, that's the 3 points that I asked you to remember. They had the control, the horse was young and inexperienced, and they cut corners. At all times, Jamie Wright had the control of the horse, made the decisions, and up until the day of the race made the right decision, that Southern Charm was not prepared, that Southern Charm was on the schooling list. And it wasn't until the morning of the race, when Jamie Wright had the conversation with Miss Frankie Fonseca, that they discovered there was a short field. And short fields, as we heard, they're bad for business. And after that conversation, and after that discovery of a short field, at that point, that's when the decision was made that Southern Charm now is safe, a few hours before the race. They had the control, and they made the choice. And we know that Southern Charm was young and inexperienced. And the last point was that they cut corners. They cut corners at every step of the way. Yes, they have policies, but they have policies so when something like this happens, they can refer back to those policies and say, we're not responsible. Look at this piece of paper. We say don't do it, but there's a lot of policies that exist. It's the enforcement that matters. It's Miss Jamie Wright that matters, the only individual who can enforce these policies. And what did we hear from Miss Wright? Kenny never wore his helmet. But did we hear that Kenny was ever reprimanded? Did we hear that Kenny was ever stopped from his job? Pay was reduced? Kenny was ever sent home? No. Jamie Wright allowed Kenny to keep doing his job. Because Colonial may have these policies, but they don't enforce them. So for breach, you're going to have to select yes. The next one is going to be causation, and it's broken down like this. Was the defendant, Colonial Casino and Racetrack, were their acts, or more importantly, their failures to act, a substantial factor in producing the death of Kenny, without which, it's the most important part, would not have occurred? Members of the jury, their act was allowing Southern Charm to be put on the starters list that day. Their act was clearing Southern Charm, without which Kenny would still be with us here today. So the only answer for causation, number 3 on your verdict form for negligence, is going to be yes. And lastly, did Kenny receive an injury? There's no dispute regarding that today. Which is why, members of the jury, at this time, from all the facts, testimony, and evidence that has been displayed, we've been shown these few things. If we've been shown that Colonial Casino and Racetrack, wow, they might feel like a family. They put their employee in a dangerous position, without which he'd still be here with us today. So in a moment, the defense counsel is going to come up here and they're going to argue their case. And I'm going to have a brief opportunity to speak with you again. But at this point in time, I just want to remember what we heard, what was shown, that Colonial Casino made a choice, and that choice resulted in Kenny's life. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Defense? You may proceed.
Just a brief moment about the
Oh, you
PowerPoint,
may.
Please, thank you. Wrong way. May it please the court,
You may.
counsel, members of the jury. The plaintiff counsel just stood up here and asked you to agree with them that building an airplane is the same thing as training a horse. Building an airplane is the same thing as training a horse. Now, there's an old saying that's said in courtrooms all across America. When the facts are on your side, you highlight those facts. When the law is on your side, you highlight the law. And when neither are on your side, you bang on the table and you make up stories. You see, my co-counsel stood up before you in opening arguments and told you this case was about one thing. It's that caution is a choice. Now, members of the jury, throughout this trial, it'd be understandable if you developed some sympathy for Miss Carter. And that's okay. It's what makes you all human. But when you took the oath to sit in that jury box, you swore to set your sympathy aside and apply the facts to the law, and that would be how you make your decision. See, my co-counsel stood before you and also told you that there were 3 facts in this case that no one would be able to deny. Is that 1, Kenny Carter had a dangerous job. And everyone who took this witness stand from Colonial Racetrack told you that it was dangerous. 2, Colonial Racetrack had policies, procedures, and equipment to try to make this job a little bit safer. And 3, Mr. Carter decided to ignore those policies when he chose not to wear his helmet. See, Ms. Carter and her attorneys, they brought this case before us, so they bear the burden of proof. They had to prove by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning more likely than not, that Colonial Racetrack was negligent and that this negligence caused the death of Mr. Carter. Now, when Ms. Carter took the stand, she told you the story of Mr. Carter, that he was a great man and that he lived a great life. So what we're asking you to do is not easy. We understand that. It is not easy to look a widow in the eye and tell her no. Colonial Racetrack is not responsible for the death of your husband. But as all the facts and evidence have come out in this case, it is clear that is what you must do. You see, Miss Carter took that stand and she told you about Kenny's life. but she was also forced to admit that she had been let go from Colonial for lying on her job application. See, that meant that she wasn't around the racetrack very often. She didn't see Southern Charm when the horse arrived. She wasn't there when Southern Charm was being trained. And she wasn't there on the day of the incident. Now, fortunately, we did bring you somebody who was there from the very moment Southern Charm arrived, who was a part of the training from the very beginning, and who was there on the day of the incident. Miss Jamie Wright. Miss Wright took the stand, and she told you that Southern Charm loaded several times without incident on the day of the race. That Southern Charm had progressed through her entire training in just a matter of days under Miss Bauer. And that on the day of the race, unfortunately, Mr. Carter made some decisions that we all wish he could take back. See, he didn't follow the policies that Colonial Racetrack had in place in order to make this job a little bit safer. You see, Mr. Carter decided to continue pushing Southern Charm into that loading gate after the horse was showing signs that it didn't want to go in. And then Mr. Carter decided to smack Southern Charm in the face, turning what was a very tense situation into making it a dangerous one. And finally, Mr. Carter decided not to wear this helmet. A helmet that you learned from Miss Fonseca is given to the employees the moment they start at Colonial Racetrack. A helmet that they thought was so important before they do anything, they are given this helmet to protect them from these big animals. And what you really learned in this case is that training a horse alone is not what makes it safe. It's caution. And caution is a choice. You see, Miss Bauer took that stand and she tried to tell you a different story. A story about a horse that was just rushed through training. But even she had to admit when she took that stand that Southern Charm loaded several times without issue on the day of the race. She admitted this despite, on cross-examination, admitting that she was a little jaded by being passed over for a job that she really wanted. A job that was held by Miss Wright. Now, Miss Fonseca took the stand and she told you the story of Colonial Racetrack. A racetrack that's been in Washingtonia for decades. A racetrack that, in its entire existence, we heard no evidence has ever had an incident like this occur. The horse involved never hurt anybody during its entire training. And you heard no evidence that the horse has hurt anybody afterwards. It's because what happened that day were based off of choices. And the choice not to use caution. Now in a moment, I'm going to sit down and you're going to be sent back to the deliberation room. And you're going to be given the jury form. And we trust that when you render a verdict, you will return the only verdict that's based on the facts and on the law. And that is that you will find Colonial Racetrack not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Plaintiff?
May I proceed?
You may.
Thank you. Members of the jury, during defense's closing argument, we heard a lot about caution and that Kenny wasn't using caution when he didn't wear his helmet, which is why the defense has raised a few defenses in today's case. And I want to go through those with you. This is going to be the verdict form you receive when you go back. And again, it's not as intimidating as it looks, I promise. The first affirmative defense that they raised is called comparative negligence. Was Kenny negligent? We agree. he should have been wearing a helmet. We don't disagree with that. I think it's been made very clear from the stand that it was given to them, it was part of the policies, and he should have been wearing it. But you know what we haven't heard? Any testimony or evidence whatsoever that said that would have made a difference. No one. Additionally, when defense got up here and showed you the picture of that helmet, we can go back to it. Look at what it covers. That lid sits right up here. And where was Kenny struck? Kenny was struck between his left eye and his left ear. With no testimony showing that helmet made a difference. With Kenny's injury occurring right here, not even where the helmet would cover. No one is here to say that that helmet would have done anything. Which is why the next question that you'll receive in the verdict form, next to comparative fault, it's going to say, was that a substantial factor in what happened to Kenny? Was him not wearing a helmet what caused this to occur? No. There's been no testimony whatsoever to say that that helmet would have made any difference, that that helmet would have been a substantial factor in preventing his death. You know, it was a substantial factor. Colonial's decision to put that horse in the race. Which is why for number 2, on the defense's affirmative defense, you must select no, that this was not a substantial factor. And then you need to move on. You need to move on to their next defense, assumption of risk. The defense's 3 undisputed facts that they showed us, 2 of them were regarding the helmet, which we just discussed, and the very first one was that it was a dangerous job. The defense's argument is that this job was so dangerous that no matter what happens, they should not be held responsible. But the thing that made this job even more dangerous was the fact that the horse didn't receive the proper training. We heard Blake Bowers take the stand, head trainer of 30 years, and say that a horse takes between 2 and 5 weeks to train. We heard testimony that each horse is different, which is why the head trainer gave us that range of 2 to 5 weeks. A great horse, sure, takes only 2 weeks. A horse that's a little slower to learn takes 5 weeks. But there is no one here who has said that a horse only takes 1 week to train. In fact, when I spoke to Cameron Carter on this stand, she said that in her 10 years of working there, she's never once seen a horse go from being not cleared to cleared with only a week's worth of training. So it's not the fact that the job was dangerous, it's the fact that Colonial made the job even more dangerous. Which is why the question is, was the danger not created by the defendant's negligence, but instead normally incident to the employment? The answer to that is no. This danger was created by their negligence. It was created by their choice to allow that horse to race, their choice to assign Kenny to that horse, and their choice that brought us here today. Which is why, members of the jury, when you receive this verdict form and you go back to deliberate, there's only one verdict that's rooted in the facts. There's only one verdict that's rooted in the testimony that's been shown here today. And most importantly, there's only one verdict that's rooted in the law. A verdict finding and holding Colonial Casino and Horse Track liable for the death of Kenneth Carter. Thank you.
All right, thank you, counsel. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is the moment that you all have been selected for and called to duty for. It is your duty to follow the law that I'm going to give you in this case. I'm not going to read all of the instructions. I'm going to send them back with you. The attorneys covered it in their closing argument, and I think that's sufficient. I'm also going to send back the verdict form that you've seen on the screen. Your first and foremost job is to select a foreperson. It can be a man or woman, and that person presides over your deliberations like the, referee, if you will. But it is the foreperson's job to make sure that each and every person's voice is heard and their position is stated. So don't cut anybody off, listen to everybody. And then the foreperson will then fill in the verdict form. And it has to be unanimous. Each and every one of you have to agree. So if he checks a box and it says yes, all of you have to agree that is yes. Okay, if he checks the box or the line that says no, all of you have to agree that that is the verdict of the jury. Keep in mind, at the end, once the foreperson has answered all the questions and checked the boxes or the lines that are necessary, the foreperson will date and then sign his or her name. Please make it legibly. Sometimes I get EKG signatures out. Please make it legibly so that we can identify what you have agreed to in this case. So, counsel, I think I've covered everything. Is there anything else? We're going to send back the handheld verdict exhibits. So if you'll get those exhibits, this is my court deputy. His name is Mr. Houdini. And he's going to now escort you to the jury room for you to begin your deliberations. And the lawyers have agreed with me, due to the lateness of the hour, we're going to let you deliberate for no more than 15 minutes tonight. So try to reach a verdict in that time. If you cannot reach a verdict, let us know, but it is our desire that you reach a verdict in this case. Thank you very much. Mr. Houdini? All right, counsel, you may be seated. The record will reflect that the members of the jury are back in the courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you been able to reach a verdict in this case? And I surmise that you are the foreperson. All right, would you hand the exhibits as well as the verdict form to Mr. Houdini, who will provide it to the court? Thank you. All right. Cameron Carter as personal representative of the estate of Kenneth Carter, deceased, and Cameron Carter individually, versus Colonial Casino and Racetrack LLC, defendant. Verdict form. We, the jury, unanimously find the following by a preponderance of the evidence. Question 1. Did the defendant have a duty to provide a safe work environment by using ordinary care for the safety of its employees, including decedent? Answer, yes. Question 2. Did the defendant breach or fail their duty by doing something a reasonably careful person would not do, or by failing to do something a reasonably careful person would do? Answer, yes. 3. Were the defendant's acts or failures to act substantial factors in producing the death of the decedent, and without which decedent's death would not have occurred? Answer, yes. And the question 4. Did the decedent receive an injury? Yes. None of the affirmative defenses were marked. So say we all this 6th day of August 2025, and it's Angel? Okay, Angel Reynolds, foreperson. All right, I'm going to poll you, and what polling means is I'm just going to ask you individually. I'll do it by numbers, starting with the top row and then come down to the bottom and end with the foreperson. Is this your verdict? All right, juror number 6, is this your verdict, sir? Juror number 5, is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 4, is this your verdict? Yes. Juror number 3, is this your verdict? Yes. I'm sorry, yes? Okay, juror number 2, is this your verdict? Yes, and Madam Foreperson, juror number 1, is this your verdict? Yes, all right, all of the jurors agree, and the verdict is for the plaintiff, and they asked for $35 million as compensatory damages and $500 million as punitive damages. So I guess file your motions for remitter and judgment on the verdict. This court stands adjourned. Thank you all for your service. It's been a pleasure having you here. And a year and a day from now, when you get summons, it'd be my pleasure to be here with you. Thank you. Awesome. I just made up those numbers.
I think the attorneys should know one thing is that it took them 15 minutes to do the first section, so they never got to the second section.
I just said they just kind of skipped over it, yeah.
Yeah. So just so you know, they did not get to the defenses. So,
But whose fault was that?
first, we want to thank Judge Holmes.
You want the verdict?
Thank you very
Take
much.
the verdict home. Thank you all.
It's become a real tradition for her to come preside over this.
I love it.
Real tradition for her to preside over these proceedings, and she does a great job. I know everybody has a lot of fun. They learned a lot, and you know, you really make it a special occasion for all of them.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Judge Holmes. We always love having you here. It's an honor for you to be here, and I know on behalf of everybody here, I want to thank you for coming. I really, really appreciate it. I also want to thank all of you all for being here and competing and actually everything you do over the summer, but all your hard work into everything you do for us is much appreciated. Love having you here. Witnesses did fantastic, all the contestants. So want to thank you for all your hard work. So good, Jeremy, excellent job. Thank you for everything, all your hard work. Amazing job today, Daniela. Awesome. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you, Fernando or Houdini.
I'm sorry.
Carlos, excellent job. Thank you for your hard work and everything you've done. And Nick, great job. Thank you. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. The entire firm was watching. I know that they share in our sentiments of saying you did a fantastic job, and all your hard work and preparation showed through. I mean, every year we get better and better. I'm sure Shaw would even agree that all the contestants get better every year. So thank you for all your hard work. Loved having you here.
All right. We're in recess.
We got a feast for everybody.